Let's talk tiles. It was very satisfying seeing you put those tiles together. Like, there's just something about it, right? So we need to know the steps to take when we want to lay tiles at home because it looks complicated.
Yes, and we want to help all of you get a good grasp of this, whether you're taking it on as a DIY or you're having a renovation done. I think it's important to know the process, know the steps so that you can make sure it's being done properly.
Yes.
And some contractors not just slapping it together to make a quick buck, right? We got to make sure it's done right. So a good tile job starts with a good base. Okay. Laying tile on a flat surface is always going to be easier. So you want to check your subfloor once you've gotten it all demoed back to the subfloor. You want to check to see if there's any humps or any valleys. Any big humps can be sanded down, scraped down to flatten out, and any valleys can be filled up with some self-leveling cement. Okay. So that way you've got a nice flat surface, will make laying the tile a lot easier.
Yeah. Beautiful.
We've all had deconstructed food. This is our deconstructed tile setup here. So next step of the process here is a primer for the subfloor. Now this is key and something else that was missing in that bathroom and why the tiles came off so easily. Yes. It wasn't primed. If you don't have a subfloor primer on the wood will actually draw the moisture out of the mortar and it'll dry improperly, and that's why you have tiles just popping off. So you need to have a primer, and then an uncoupling membrane is also very important. This is something we do on all of our tile jobs. Yes. This is something that takes the stress of the house, because your house is always moving and shifting, and it takes that stress away from the tile itself so you don't have cracking. It also distributes the weight of the tile throughout the entire floor instead of just each individual tile.
It sounds like it just got a divorce. It's an uncoupled, what is it?
Uncoupling membrane.
It's a membrane that got divorced.
But it's keeping everything together at the same time.
It's almost like counterintuitive the way that works.
I like to think of it as like your therapist. Like it's holding the stress, it's keeping it all together for you.
Also, if something's stressing you out, you can just wrap in that. Dave stressed me out, I'm wrapping in my He's not a stress anymore.
Very good.
This one specifically too is a heated membrane one too. So you could run a heated membrane cable through that to have a nice heated toasty floor.
That's fantastic.
So once you've got all those down, then you can see here we've got the tile on there and you can see the mortar lines. Yeah. So that's one of the most important things, and we're going to kind of give you a little demo on how to put it together properly. Okay. Because those mortar lines are essential in, as the tile collapses and gets pressed into it, those lines collapse down, spread the mortar across the whole tile so that you've got great coverage.
Okay, so there's a reason why you've got those lines and grooves in there.
Yes, it's not just for, I mean, it's satisfying, right? It's like a little Zen garden.
Absolutely. So we've got some plexiglass sheets here. These are representing tile. We don't suggest doing a plexiglass floor. Not going to be a good look. But we've got plexiglass here. We're going to show you what not to do first.
Okay.
So
don't do this.
You might have seen people doing it, and we call this kind of like cookieing. So it's like little cookies you're putting down on the corners. Yeah. This isn't like arts and crafts as a kid. No. If you glued a piece of paper, it would stick. But if you put a piece of tile and you just dab the edges of it, you can see how much air is left in behind that tile. So that hasn't properly dispersed across the entire tile. There's air pockets there. It's going to crack. It's going to shift. There's too much room for air. Somebody doing that, if you see them on your job, you got to stop right away, because a project like that is not going to last.
Tell them the BroLaws told you. Stop it. You need a trowel.
So that is why we have notched trowels. And there's different sizes of notched trowel. Okay. So the larger the trowel, or the larger the towel, the larger the notches in the trowel that you need. Okay. So these big ones are half-inch, half-inch. That's if you're doing a large format. Yeah. We've got the 3/8 quarter-inch, which is what we're going to be using today. And then you have a little V-notch that you can use if you're doing like a backsplash tile.
Okay. All right. And so you're going to show us how to put that on? Yeah.
So you want to just put it on in a nice straight line. So you don't want to like swipe it around too much. No. You want a nice straight line that's going to go across. Let me fold that so you can...
So he can get to business.
Yeah, so you're going to cover the space of the tile in a nice straight line. And as the tile presses into that, each of those ridges are going to collapse down and spread across the whole way.
Okay.
Making a mess here.
Does it matter if it's vertical or horizontal?
It doesn't. We try to keep it in the same direction. There's a lot of debate about this in the tile community. Some people like to do the rainbow pattern. Some people like a swerve to it.
I've seen that rainbow.
Exactly. We like to just go all one direction. Okay. The consistency of that mortar should be like a peanut butter or like a cake mix. You want it to be movable.
You're making me so hungry today. We talked about cookies. Now it's peanut butter.
But you don't want these ridges to collapse on their own. That's one of the keys. You don't want it to be too loose where it's already collapsing. It should stand on its own. And then when we get our tile to lay it in, that's when you press and you see those collapse.
Yeah, smoosh it.
Together.
Very good. So that's what you're looking for.
Yes.
Do you have to do that quickly? Is there a time constraint here?
Yes and no. So the mortar will start to set up. It'll get a little bit harder. It's important that if your mortar is setting up, you don't just add water and remix it. That's not good. If it's starting to set up, throw it out, start a new batch. So work in segments. You want to start with little segments that are doable.
Okay.
There's also a lot of little tips and stuff for making tile easier. This is a tile level clip. So in between each tile, you can use this, like we have here, to help keep everything flat and level. So you can feel it, but then also once it's dry, you peel that out and you knock that out of place, and now it's left open for all of your grout joints.
So it spaces it perfectly, and
exactly.
And then you've got this great job. And then the next is the grout, which we'll save for another episode, because that's a whole other thing,
ball game.
right?
A whole other ball game.
Really, that's a beautiful lesson. You know, I'm still not going to do it, but I'll call you guys.
Yeah, fair enough.